Well, hello and welcome. Welcome to another episode of the Imperfect Men's Club podcast. My name is Mark Aylward, and I'm here as always with my good friend, colleague, and co-host Jim Gurley. And Jim and I had a pretty robust pregame. We were off last week because Jim was traveling to Las Vegas for an industry thing, which may or may not come up in this particular episode. But we were talking about the concept of serving other people. And it started with a conversation about just helping, and then we came to service as kind of it's a bigger word. It has bigger meaning and broader meaning. And as I was thinking about it, Jim, to connect it to the wheel, our five areas of life with the self in the middle. Um, Obviously, everything's about self-awareness, right? Are we doing our best to serve other people? I suppose would be one way of looking at it. But
Mhm.
it dawned on me that the connecting area of the five might be relationships, like other people,
Yeah.
right? So
Yep.
I'm sure it'll touch on the other four, and you can dance around the wheel as you always do to your
Mhm.
heart's content. But I think let's talk about the idea of serving other people from whatever angle we want.
Mhm. Yeah, Mark, again, appreciate the setup because as you said, we start off every episode talking about these four areas of our life. In the center of the wheel or in the center of the hand is self and self-awareness. Everything starts with self-awareness. I'll remind the about the other ones, which is profession. Often a man uh, his value is based on his profession. So we start off with that one. The other one is our health, our physical health, our mental health. The other one is our relationship with money. Uh, the other one is our worldview, which seems to fall into every episode one way or the other. These things are always
Hmm.
going on.
Hmm.
But one that we haven't spent much time on, which I appreciate today, is going to be others. And others is serving others. And in that spoke of the wheel, we put two categories, which men and women. Men could be your father, your brother, your friends. The relationship that we have with men is different than a relationship we have with women.
Hmm.
And again, not in a bad way, in a very positive way, because it brings out different things in us. So I appreciate you bringing that up. Others, when we serve others, uh, there's two types of service I've learned over the years, and even what I was doing last week was a service. It's a National Kitchen and Bath Association. Um, KBIS is the other name for a Kitchen and Bath Industry Show. It's this one same entity, but once a year they have this conference in This year it was in Las Vegas, massive event. It's well over 100,000 people, record attendance again this year. So I'm part of that, and it's a service. It's a 2-year term as the membership chair. By the way, not to to mention too much about myself in this, but um, we all gather there, the 70 different chapters throughout the country, um, the day before the conference starts, and then they have meetings all day, and then they have this awards banquet. And I was selected as the number one membership chair for the National Kitchen and Bath Association. Yeah, it
Nice.
was kind of cool. I mean, everybody likes a
Congrats.
little hardware, right? You went up there and they clap for you, and it was a room of about 350 people. So it's recognition. But the reason I mention it is because this is not a paid position. This is
Hmm.
a service position. So uh, obviously, when you receive an award like that, people ask you or if you have questions. I actually did some talks after that and before that, and it was service. The benefits of committing yourself to something without compensation creates an entirely different um, currency. What
Hmm.
and that currency is, but believe it or not, it's actually in some ways better than money because
Yeah.
you also attract the similar types of people. So it doesn't mean that it doesn't eventually lead. In fact, it does lead to money because you have access and you have relationships and you're really the ambassador for the industry for that period of time. So it's like anything in life. It's what you make of it, right? Our chapter
Sure.
here in Northern California, one of the largest chapters in the country. We have just a fantastic team and we enjoy each other's company and we're really good at what we do. In fact, the
Hmm.
other there's only 5 roles for each chapter, and another role also has received the top honors for the country. So yeah, I just really appreciate the topic. I think it's timely because there's service and there's unconditional service, meaning that it's unconditional. You're giving something without any guarantee that you'll receive something back.
Yeah.
And that,
Not even an expectation. Yeah.
yeah, even better, taking it to that. So that's a whole other level of serving. I think we started off the conversation about helping others. Well, I appreciate what you said about helping others. And we we do have, let's just say, a group of people that believe by imposing their help on others that that's a righteous thing to do. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
I
Mm-hmm.
actually would consider it kind of self-righteous in a lot of ways, but again, we're not going to. We're not talking about world view today. We're not talking about politics, but,
We might
but
sneak some in
yeah,
there. Who
we'll sneak.
knows?
We always sneak something in. It always becomes part of that. So yeah. I mean, again, I can go on and on about different services. It's not for everyone. Right? Let's face it. Right? Not
Yeah.
everybody is in a position to serve,
Yeah.
or if they are, it has a motive, which is probably you shouldn't be doing it if you have a direct motive or
Yeah, let's like
yeah,
dig under the covers a little bit, as you might say. I think
yeah.
the as you're talking, I'm thinking about, and you're talking about your most recent involvement in this kitchen and bath association, which is a part of your business career profession background,
Yeah,
right?
it's in my industry,
It's in
so
your industry. And so
correct. Yeah.
mine, to remind people, is helping people with their professional development,
hmm
maybe changing jobs. So I think if I were to separate what I've done my whole life from a service perspective, starting off with helping people, like I might help somebody
hmm
redo their resume. I might help somebody prepare for an interview. But if I'm really serving that person in my space, I'm helping them understand who they are.
hmm
I'm helping them understand where they want to go and what they want to get out of life.
hmm
And so that level of service takes on a whole nother level of responsibility, at least in my mind.
hmm
Because if I help you do your resume and I fuck that up, you might not get an interview, maybe, but there's no, like, no one's going to die. But if I send you in the wrong direction in life,
hmm
that comes with more responsibility. So it's
Well,
not
but let's talk
just,
about that though. Are
yeah.
we talking about paid service or unpaid service? Because I
Well,
do think there's
that's
a
a good
difference.
question. That's
Yeah.
a good question
But
because
if
I
you're
think
helping
my,
somebody, if they paid you to help them with their resume or help them get a job placement, that is service, and there's nothing wrong. In fact, sometimes you have to charge in order to be valued for the service.
yep.
But let's break that down to make sure that we're not mixing the two.
Well, I think the two, I understand your distinction, but maybe the two belong mixed up a little bit. I don't know. Let's see. Let's
I
see.
don't agree. I do think when you're exchanging money, there is there is an outcome, and the currency is money in exchange for a service or a product. I think
Mm,
that
it
this.
is. That's a true statement, but I also
Mm,
think that there's quite possibly a level of trust that develops there, and a level, like, when I help people for a particular fee, do I go outside the boundaries of what I initially charged them for? Almost every time. So that's why I think they might be connected. It depends. I think it's probably specific to a particular circumstance or a case, but I appreciate
right.
your distinction.
But well,
Mhm.
the distinction is one's a transaction. The other one is a transaction with a different reward or outcome. That's that would be the difference for me. If I'm going to pay somebody for something, I'm paying them. I trust that I'm paying them to deliver a service or a product. The relationship is over once they paid. The service I'm talking about, I'm giving my time in exchange to promote the association, right? The National Kitchen and Bath Association. In exchange, I receive access. I obviously access to people that I otherwise probably would have never received access to. I
Mhm.
receive relationships. I receive business opportunities and other things that could eventually be monetized. But my initial service is not in exchange for money because they're not paying us. They by the way, the International Kitchen and Bath Association, it's the largest association, one of the largest in the world. So they have an entirely, um, they have CEO and they have staff. They have jobs. The 70 chapters throughout the country is unpaid. So there are
Well, what's
two.
interesting
I'm
about
using that
what's
as an
in,
example because there are two different. Um, we're all part of the association plus the memberships, which is, you know, like 50, it's pretty large, like 20,000 members. But go ahead. Yeah.
well, what's interesting about what you just said to me is these things evolve over time, right? You said, well, I don't get anything for, I'm not getting any money for this, but I get this and this and this that might lead to money. So at what point does that become a transaction? Well, it didn't start as a transaction. Well, as you well know, most of mine don't start as transaction either. You get on my calendar for 30 minutes for free and I'll tell you whatever you want to hear. And then at the end of that, you can say, I want to pay you for more or I don't want to pay you for more. So, what percentage of those things never end up being transactions? More often than not. So,
Mhm.
I think there's an intention involved. I think there's a selflessness involved. I think there's maybe an ulterior motive involved or not. So I
Mhm.
think it's a bigger picture. And that's why I thought they might be connected because you don't have to go into serving someone else with the intention of making money from it. But
Mhm.
I would venture a guess that very often you may end up making money indirectly from that because that's kind of your collective purpose. If I'm going to serve the world, at some point I got to pay the electric bill, right? So somebody has to give me something somewhere along the line, or I got to have another job that I collect a paycheck from or another business that generates income.
That
So
could be completely unrelated. Yeah.
completely unrelated. It could be,
Yeah.
but it
I
might
mean,
not, but it might not
look at
be.
your local church, right? That's a good example, right?
Hmm.
Those are those are people giving their service. There are different roles at the local church, uh, but there really is no money being exchanged directly.
Ah, no, 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 no. Not,
Hear me out. Of course, there's a lot of money being exchanged. That's why they're so. That's why those churches are so big. But I'm talking about the individual transaction. If you're in a men's group and you're helping somebody, um, he's not going to give you a check at the end of the night. Versus if you had uh, an agreement that you're going to help him with his job, and then if he likes what you're saying, then he gives you a check for $1,000 or whatever it is. That's all I'm saying. It's just how money. Let's just agree that there's different currencies that overlap at times, and not always is it money.
well, I think the that phrase you just used is kind of let's just agree. No.
Well, I'll tell you right now, I'm not backing off. A transaction's a transaction.
Hey
When
man,
I'm paying somebody something, that's not service.
no, it's
That is an agreement in exchange for a product and services. That's a different type of service. Yeah.
no, I completely understand it. I just think there's another way of looking at it. And like
Mhm.
when you bring up the church, one of the challenges I have at least once a year with the Catholic Church is you go in and it's a drive, and they literally spend half of that mass talking about how much money they've raised, how much more they need. Please put some more money in the basket. This is what that money pays for. It's like, all right, well, that
Yeah.
to me, it's interesting, Jim, because that kind of soils that experience for me.
Yeah, it does. That's what it
But,
reminds me of why I don't go to
but,
church on Sunday. Yeah.
but I also recognize all of the expenses involved in allowing me to be right here, right now, getting the benefit of this service, and to refuse the notion that that actually costs money. That's not realistic.
I
So I
see.
think there's a purpose behind the transaction that might be different. And
Mhm.
maybe the transaction isn't like, you're going to get a lot of service from this person or from this entity, and it's not going to cost you a lot of money. But one day somebody's going to pop up and say, well, what about this added service or this additional, you want to go get somewhere faster, or you want to do other things, or you want to participate in this ancillary service. So I don't think it's that black and white. I'll honor your distinction, but I think it's a little more cloudy than that for me.
Okay. Well, I'll share a story with me. You can tell me what you think, whether this is there's a monetary motive to this one. So I was when I go to Vegas, I prefer not to fly, so I could, I have a van, so I
Mm-hmm.
drive from uh my home here in Northern California, Santa Barbara, spend the night, take a run on the beach, go swimming, whatever, and then finish the drive. Exactly the half, 5 hours and 5 hours. So
Mm-hmm.
it's a typical route I've taken. But anyway, I received this call from one of my former players, kind of out of the blue, and he says, "Hey, his name's actually I'll leave his name out. I forget we're recording. So he says, "Hey, coach, it's been a while. Hope you're doing well." Or he sends me a text. Do you have a minute to talk? And I said, "Yeah, sure." It was good timing. I did see him a few months before because he was a volunteer coach for my youth football program. He had a nephew that he was helping out because the father wasn't in the picture, and he was there as a volunteer youth football coach um, to help out his nephew. And this kid was probably one of the best athletes I've ever seen of all the years, and that says a lot. His
Yeah.
physical strength, his size, his everything about this guy was remarkable. He's definitely NFL. In fact, he had a full ride to a USC. I think that didn't go through. Something else happened. But anyway, so he says, "Hey," and you could tell when he's on the phone, he's not himself. And he says, "Hey, you may notice that my voice is a little bit broken because he goes, hey, I got in some trouble, and I wanted to know if you could loan me some money." And I said, "Well, first of all, um, what happened?" And he said, "Well, I was at the airport visiting my son, down in Southern California, and I got into an altercation with the police at the airport. Basically, he was asked to get off to be removed from the airplane, and then they arrested him when they took him off the airplane.
Mm.
So what happened?" I go, "Were you drinking?" He goes, "Yes." I said, "Did you have a physical altercation? Like, did you?" Well, they charges were filed against me were ex- resisting arrest. Like, did you wrestle anybody, or what happened? He goes, "No, no." I said, "Have you had some other problems? I mean, what's your priors?" Which, of course, I'd be at, of course, he had priors, but no felonies from what I can understand. I said, "Okay, here's the deal. First of all, I don't loan money to anybody, nobody. I don't loan money to anybody. That includes my family, my friends, and I don't loan money." I said, "But what I will do," and he says, "I'll pay you back." And I said, "How much you need?" He goes, "Oh, it's just a couple $100. Anything you could do would be helpful." Because what he was trying to do was hire an attorney
Mm.
for the arraignment, which was going to be 10 days later. And
Mm.
this and so my first comment was, first of all, I appreciate you coming to me 10 days before, not the day before. And the fact that you're trying to get an attorney is a good sign." He goes, "Yeah, in the past, I went with a public defender. That I go, and that didn't work out, didn't it?" He goes, "No, they'll just plea it for you. That's just what they do, right?" Like I said,
Mm-hmm.
I've been through this many, many times
Yep.
before with
Yep.
other players. So I kind of know the thing. And I says, "Hey, look, if you, here's the deal." He goes, I go, "How much do you need total?" He goes, "Anything, like a couple $100." I said, "No, how much do you need?" He goes, "To retain the lawyer, I need $1,400 by Friday. If I don't have it by Friday, then I have to go to the arraignment on Monday without an attorney. I
Mm-hmm.
get a public defender." I said, "Okay." So I said, you get a public defender and you're going to prison. That's just the
Mm-hmm.
bottom line, right? Because that's a felony and you've got some priors, you're going to prison." And he was saying he also played professional football, so he was not for the NFL. He had these contracts with I think Canadian football or arena football or something like that. So
Mm-hmm.
that's how he was supporting himself. Uh, and he, of course, he couldn't travel, right? Because he lost his visa because he was arrested. So, and then all his volunteering that he ultimately wants to be a high school football coach, and I can help him with that, but certainly can't help him with that if he has a felony, right? All
Mm-hmm.
that's limited. I said, "Do you realize that if you don't beat this, then your ability to travel outside the country is over, and your coaching that you want to do to help young men like that you've been helped, that all goes away. So if I give you, I will not loan you the money. You can pay me back in other ways, but I am, if I'll think about giving you the money. Let me think about it. Call me back tomorrow at this time and we'll talk about it some more. And by the way, give me your attorney's number and give me the case number and all the other stuff. So the next day I think about it. It's tough, right? Because $1,400 is not that much money, but if I don't do it, there's a good chance he's done. He's done, meaning that he's going to prison. He's part of the system, and he'll never get out of it, right?
Yep. Yep.
There's also no chance that he'll beat the case. He thinks he has a good case, but they don't really know because he hasn't had an attorney and they haven't done discovery yet. So that's the other thing. The other thing, and I never make a decision like that immediately. I said, let me think about it. Call me back tomorrow at 12, like, the next day, because I was driving still. And then I remembered. In fact, my son reminded me, because I was talking to my son at the same time. He reminded me that this kid, again, really nice kid. He's Polynesian, so I know obviously his family and his brother was murdered. And I spoke at it was big Catholic service, and I spoke at the service. Must have been 900 people there, and I forgot. That was his brother. His brother was shot in the face when he was he probably was 12 or something.
Oh God.
Yeah. So and I thought it was his cousin. Then my son reminded me, no, because he's the same age as my son. And I just said, I'm going to do this. I'm going to do this. And I know that I may never talk to him again. I know that this may or may not help. So he calls back the next day. I say, hey, look, here's the deal. I'm going to pay half. My son's going to pay the other half. Well, and you don't owe us anything. You don't owe us any money. But what you do owe me is you owe me some accountability. I go, you can pay me back in other ways, right? But it's not going to be, you've demonstrated that you care because you're helping out your nephew, like trying to get him. You're doing the right things in life, and this is my way to help you. But it's not money, Don't tell me you're going to pay this back. I don't want you to pay it back, because if that happens, then our relationship is over forever. And I go, but what I am going to ask you, I'm going to ask you to be accountable. And when I say going in on this, we're going to go in this to win. That means that I'll talk to your attorney. After I talk to your attorney, I want to know the next court date. I'll get you letters of recommendation. Because I know I have the nonprofit, we have the youth football program. We got to stack this in our favor and win this. And this is over. And I go, but the other way, what are you doing about drinking? And he goes, Coach, I promise you, I haven't had a drink, in 6 months since this happened. I'm going to AA classes. No, that's, yeah. So he was taking responsibility. These things can go, like I said, I may never talk to him again.
Yep.
But that's an example of service. But again, unconditional. The condition was that he comes back and continues to be the best version of himself. If he does coach, he better coach for my teams, not my competition teams, right? And that, yeah, well, again, we'll see it happens. But the reason I share the story is because I've been through this before. Just because I gave him money doesn't mean that this is going to be all great, right? I may never talk to him again. I know that going into it. There's a 50% chance I may never hear from him again. The only thing I know is that if I didn't do it, that would, he obviously, in my opinion, was worth it. I could tell by his voice, I could tell. And then when he gave me all the case numbers, he gave me the attorney's number and everything right away. He wasn't some junkie just looking for a hit with some, he got himself into a situation. And Yeah, a lot there, but I've just got to that point in my life. I've the only time I only give money once before, um, and of course I never got paid back because you'll never get it paid back, right?
Right.
But
Right.
but
Well,
but it,
I
you get
think
paid
that's
back in
a
other ways. Yeah, yeah,
yeah, no, I mean there are conditions because you put some conditions on it. They're just not monetary. So that
yeah,
would be one distinction.
yeah.
The other distinction would be, yeah, I mean that's a selfless act. And I think but what you did there as I heard it and what he did was he took accountability, he took responsibility for what happened.
Hmm.
And because he gave, I mean, one doesn't give you all of that information, case numbers, lawyers,
Yeah,
all that stuff means before he called you, he understood what the call might entail,
yeah,
right? He didn't just go, "Hey, coach, you're loaded. Cut me a check, will you? Come on, don't be
yeah,
a dick," right? That
yeah.
would
And
because
to your point, Mark, it took a lot of courage to call me. You could
it
tell.
sure did. It sure
Yeah.
did. Yeah,
Hmm.
but you don't make that call without doing your homework, and he did it. And
Hmm.
so, what I'm hearing and outside of the idea of service, which this certainly is
Hmm.
service to someone
Hmm.
else, like significant life changing, potentially life saving, potentially service. It's a big deal,
Hmm.
right? But when all that work is said and done, what you're also allowed to do with this young man is go, this really is just this is just a bad mistake. This is just a
Hmm.
bad decision, right?
Hmm.
In the
Yeah.
moment, influenced by alcohol, which he's attending to. I
That's
mean,
right.
when you describe it like that, it's like get in line, man. I know 100 kids that have done shit like that, and so do you,
Yeah.
right? And it's like, but very few of them take immediate responsibility. So I think he was, I guess, for lack of a better phrase, it sounds to me like he was deserving of your service, right?
Yeah, yeah,
So,
we'll see. Yeah, yeah, the circumstances, and then I talked to him a couple other times, a little more about the details because I wanted to know more. One about his priors. His priors weren't too bad. He had a DUI. He had a drunken public. Nothing major, right? But stuff that um, will be a will be an issue because he has priors. Um,
mm-hmm.
but then the particulars too. Of course, I didn't mention to him in the conversation, just the memory of his brother. What a traumatic experience that he had early on in his life. He had to deal with that, right?
Yeah.
That is something that very very few could relate to. And
Well,
then
yeah, I'm
when
sure.
I said, Give me the particulars again. What happened?" He goes, "Well, I had a couple of drinks and I was talking to people on the plane, and they told me to I said, I gotta try not to say his name. I said, you scared people. When you when you're that size, you scare people. So you
Yep.
scared. That's what he goes. I don't know why they asked me to leave the plane or they called the police. Because you scared people. If that was oh, you can appreciate this, right, Mark? You're 6'4", 6'5", you're a big guy.
Mm-hmm.
Big people scare people.
Yep. Yep.
And so you call that discrimination or
Well, I
you
think,
call that reality, right?
I think hopefully one of the things he takes away from this is that awareness because
Yep.
I know lots of big people, and I know you do too, but not all of them are sensitive to the fact that they might influence or scare other people. I literally make it a point not to get too close to people that I don't know
Interesting.
until,
Yeah, yeah,
and
you're right. It is self-awareness.
it is,
And he's Polynesian, so he's very dark
yeah,
compared to, so there's
yeah.
that factor. I go, but tell me what happened. He says, so yeah, I said, did you when they asked you to leave the, the flight because they took him off the plane?
Mm-hmm.
And he goes, oh, I did ask him, why? And he goes, I go, did you resist on the plane, like physically? He goes, no. Okay. So then what happened? He says, well, when I got off the plane, the police officer was coming at me or something. And I told him to, F off or something. And that's what triggered everything, right? When you did that. And he goes, I just told him to F off. And then before I knew it, they grabbed my arm and they cuffed me, and that was it. And then they
Yep.
gave me assisting
Yep.
arrest. I said, so there was no struggles. You didn't resist at all physically. He goes, no. And I said, that's why they think they can get, he thinks he can get off with an
Yeah.
attorney, right?
Oh, it's
And
certainly helpful that he didn't. I mean, but I mean, it's yeah. I mean, I think it's a great move on your part. I applaud you for it, and I
yeah,
think that your recognition that you may never hear from him again or get any of that return effort back that you're asking for.
it's a
That's
reality.
just that's just you either accept that and cut him a check or you don't,
That's
right?
right. Yeah.
So, but no, that's all self-awareness right there. No,
Yeah.
I think the way that I would like to move towards wrapping this episode up, Jim, is this back to a little bit of the that's definitely service. That's service. But you described what you did was a very responsible way of saying, let me have all the context. Tell me what happened,
Mhm.
right? Not like it began where it really had nothing to do with the money. It sounds to me like you were kind of like, my inclination is to want to help, but I'm not just going to help because my inclination is to help. I need to know what happened and I need to understand that he's remorseful and responsible and
Yeah.
I need him to have a certain attitude and certain tone. And I don't know if you had a chance to think about all that before it happened, but that's what you were doing, right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
good for you. Good
Yeah.
for him.
And I also, I said, yeah, everything is a conditional. I said, of course. He said, Coach, I really appreciate this. I'll do it. I said, you can pay me back in other ways. I go, everything is conditional,
Hmm.
but it's not going to be monetary. What I want
Yeah.
you to do is I want you to win this. I want you to win this, and I'll be there for you after the arraignment because I can help you with the letters. I can make the letters of recommendation. I can talk to your attorney. That's what I want in exchange. If I give you
Hmm.
this, you have to promise me. I want your word that you'll come back and you'll at least allow me to help you get this behind you, knowing
Hmm.
that that may not happen too either, right?
Well,
That's
we when we first started talking about helping other people, it
yeah,
was I made some comment about, yeah, but in order to help other people, they need to want to be helped.
yeah,
And this kid
yep,
wanted to be helped, right?
yep,
He wanted to
yep.
be helped. And I think that the other piece that I would say, because it's something I struggle with, this thing that we were talking about earlier, whether it was related to the Catholic Church or just charging people money for helping them, is like, where is the line between serving someone else just out of the goodness of your heart with no expectation of anything in return and serving someone else in a legitimate fashion with purpose, but also asking for a monetary compensation in return? Because
Mhm.
there are thousands of people in the world right now who are capable of helping other people. And the
Mhm.
reason that they're not helping other people, one of them is because they can't make a living doing that because they
Mhm.
struggle. If I'm not willing to help this person without asking for money, then I'm not really serving, Emma. There's something
Mhm.
selfish about that. And
Yeah.
that's a conversation I have with myself all the time because other people will tell me, Mark, you have an obligation to get your wisdom into the world and it's worth money. So don't be shy about charging for it. Now, these are all different scenarios, and I'm not saying one of them is right or wrong. It's
Mhm.
just an interesting conversation to have with yourself. How are you serving other people? Because at the end of the day, Jim, if I take all the service I've done and all the service you've done, in a vast majority of those cases, I bet you could eventually connect it to some level of compensation
Of
indirectly.
course. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It comes back in other ways again. Let's wrap up this one with I know we start off the word uh, entitlement because I do think there are a group of people that feel entitled to help or to service.
Big
And
group.
then and then you came back with this beautiful word. So I'll let you share that with us and we'll wrap this one up. But I just think that this capitalizes or capsulizes um, the moment in terms of there are certain people that have this entitlement where they deserve service without any compensation of any kind. And then again, I love your word of the day. So share that with us and we'll wrap this one
Are
up.
you talking? Which one are you talking about? Petulant?
Yep. Yep.
Yeah. Yeah, it's indirectly related. It was we said we weren't going to get into politics. That's where it came from. Is the behavior of our Democratic Party at Trump's speech last night? But it was just like it's childish, boorish, irresponsible. just snarky, entitled behavior. And it's like, I was saying the other day, and this just popped into my head that, there's two kinds of people that are entitled. And those are people that are just like selfish and children, you
Yeah.
know, these people are acting like
They don't take
children.
responsibility. Just looping it back to this story that I shared. He was taking responsibility.
Yep.
He was trying. He knew he made some mistakes, but he's taking responsibility. There was no entitlement, right?
No, there was no entitlement, and I didn't hear any woe is me. I didn't hear
Mm,
any woe is me. He wasn't
yeah.
feeling sorry for himself either.
If I had
And
picked up on that, conversation would have been over really quick. Yeah.
oh yeah. Oh, immediately. Yeah,
Yeah.
I know you well enough to know that.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think we're all in a position to serve other people, and I think we should all do more of it. And I'll leave
Yeah.
it up to everyone individually as to who's going to charge who for what.
All right.
Thanks, Jim.
That's good. All right. Until next week, Mark.
See
Talk to
you.
you later.